Hey. Hey. Say hi. Here we are. Hi. Hi. Here we are. You're so silly. Oh. What, you want the brush? Okay, here you go. Hey, everybody. Here we are for another reading. I'm really proud of myself. I haven't missed a day yet. So I was like half hour late once, but I did it still. So I've just enjoyed this so much. So before we get started, I haven't ever really said, like the video, comment, share, all that kind of stuff, because everybody knows the YouTube stuff, right? That you're supposed to do. Yeah, do that. Yeah. And then before we get started, I'd like to ask, what did you have for dinner? Put in the comments. I mean, unless you haven't had dinner yet, what are you going to have for dinner? Or what did you have for dinner yesterday? So I made fried chicken. So it had a, like, dipped in the egg, and then I had a cracker flour coating on them. It was so good. And then I made a gravy, like a white gravy with fresh basil in it. And then I made some onion basil rice, and it was so good. And corn on the cob. It was super yummy. And then we had buttermilk buns still that I made the other day. So we had buttermilk buns with a little scoop of ice cream for dessert. And it was really good. And Caden, Baya had stuffed bell peppers. Oh, yum. I like stuffed bell peppers. I haven't done that for a long time. Good idea. See, this is nice because it gives people ideas for what to do for dinner. I did do those little miniature stuffed sweet peppers the other day with jalapenos and bacon, cream cheese in them. They were really, really good. They were yum. I put extra jalapenos because everybody's been sick, so sore throats and everything. So they were hot, but they were good. Excuse me. Okay, so Kaden wants to say hi. Say hi. Baya misses the stuffed peppers. Yeah, they're good. They're so yummy. If you'd come see me, I'd make them for you. Okay. Hi. You're so silly. You're silly. You're a silly baby. What are you doing? He loves to come do the readings with me, I guess. So I guess that's what we do now. Is we bring by. Oh, I didn't bring anything that I've made to show off. I forgot. Well, me and Kaylissa actually did a little pour today, and it was really fun, like a resin pour. So she made some little boxes and stuff. I'll show those off tomorrow if I remember. Okay, so we are to chapter 17, and I did chapter 16 yesterday. And so, little recap, Nat put jack-o'-lanterns in the window. You can't take the book, baby. Oh, be nice. Look, you have to be nice. Look. Oh, be sweet. You can't be nice. You can't take the book from me. Hey, don't be grumpy. Don't be grumpy. Be nice. Be nice. Be nice. What's the matter? What's the matter? Look, you have to be happy because we're reading. Who's that? Say hi. You're okay. Sorry. Anyway, he put jack-o'-lanterns in William's house, in the windows of the house he's building for Kit. And that's naughty no. So him and two other guys from the Dolphin got put in the stockades, in the stocks. And so Kit went to the stocks, and she was just so stressed out about it. And he was really mad at her for coming and seeing him like that. Anyway, so then instead of going to meetings, she went to Hannah's, and Prudence was there, and she was teaching her how to write. Anyway, so recap of last chapter 16. Now we're up to chapter 17. So 5 days after John Holbrook's departure, Judith fell ill. Her mother, inclined at first to attribute her complaints to moping, took a second look at her flushed cheeks and put her to bed. Oh, yeah, and John, Judith's fiance, signed up to be a soldier. So he's going to go fight. So she's really mad because she wanted him to stay with her and, do their thing. So her mother took a second look at her flushed cheeks and put her to bed. Within 2 more days, alarm had spread to every corner of Wethersfield. 16 children and young people were stricken with the mysterious fever, and none of the familiar remedies seemed to be of any benefit. For days, Judith tossed on the cot they had spread for her in front of the hearth, burning with fever, fretful with pain, and often too delirious to recognize the 3 women who hovered about her. A young surgeon was summoned from Hartford to bleed her, and a nauseous brew of ground-roasted toads was forced between her cracked lips to no avail. The fever simply had to run its course. Oh my goodness. Okay, I knew they would bleed people, which was like the worst thing you could possibly do when somebody's sick is they would put the leeches on them because they were saying they were trying to take the bad blood out so that they could get better. But the problem is when you're sick and you're trying to get better, you need all the blood you can get. So they're draining sick people of their blood, and it killed a lot of people who would die who probably wouldn't have otherwise. So it's kind of a terrible thing. You are a handful, baby boy. On the 4th day, Kit felt chilly and lightheaded, and by twilight she was thankful to sink down on the mat they dragged to the fireside near her cousin. Her bout with the malady was short, however. Her wiry young body, nourished by Barbados fruits and sunshine, had an elastic vitality, and she was back on her feet while Judith was still barely sitting up to sip her gruel. Dressing. Hey, calm down. Is there something stuck on your hand? What is it? Did you get a hair on you or something? What is that? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Jump down. There it is. Dressing rather shakily, Kit was compelled. I'm sorry, he's so noisy. He's been so grumpy today. He doesn't feel good. He's teething. Keeps biting everything in sight. He bit my leg so hard. I have a bruise and it pierced the skin and it was bloody. It hurt so bad. But yeah, he's teething. You're okay. Look, we're reading. Okay. Dressing rather shakily, Kit was compelled to ask Mercy's assistance with the buttons down her back and was shocked when her older cousin suddenly bent double in a violent fit of coughing. Here. Kit whirled around on her. How long have you been coughing like that? Oh, I'm sorry. I hope you can hear. She demanded. Let me feel your hand. Aunt Rachel, for heaven's sake, get Mercy to bed quick. Oh, I'm guessing you probably cannot hear a thing. Let me take him. Oh, well, I was going to take you to Dada, but if you're going to be happy, you can stay here. Because we're reading. Okay. How long have you been coughing like that? She demanded. Let me feel your hand. Aunt Rachel, for heaven's sakes, get Mercy to bed quick. Here she's trying to wait on us. Tears of weakness and protest ran down Mercy's cheeks as Rachel stooped to take off her oldest daughter's shoes. Kit heated the warming pan to take the chill off Mercy's bed in the corner, and Mercy buried her face in the pillow as though it were shame past bearing that she should cause so much trouble. Mercy was seriously ill. Twice the young doctor rode out from Hartford to bleed her. The 3rd time, he stood looking soberly down at her. I dare not bleed her further, he said helplessly. Rachel raised timid eyes to her husband. Matthew, do you think that perhaps... Shh, you're so noisy. Gershom Bulkley might know something to help her? He is so skilled. Matthew's lips tightened. I have said that man does not come into my house, he reminded her. We will hear no more about it. Rachel, already worn from the long vigil with Judith, was near the breaking point. Matthew, after working the fields all day, forced his wife against her will to get some rest while he sat by his daughter's bedside at night. Aw, see, he loves her so much. Okay. Judith watched helplessly, still too weak even to comb her own hair. The meals fell to Kit, and she did the best she could with them, measuring out the cornmeal, stirring up the pudding, spooning it into a bag to boil, and cursing the clumsiness that she had never taken the pains to overcome. She built up the fire, heated kettles of water for the washing so that Mercy might have fresh linen under her restless body. She fetched water and strained a special gruel for Judith and spread her uncle's wet clothes to dry before the fire. At night, she dozed off exhausted and woke with a start, sure that something was left undone. Mercy lay on some remote borderland between sleeping and waking. Nothing could rouse her, and every breath was such a painful struggle that the slow rasp of it filled the whole house. Fear seeped in at the corners of the room. The family dared not speak above a whisper, though certainly Mercy was beyond hearing. On the fourth morning of Mercy's illness, Matthew did not go to work at all, but sat heavily at the table, turning the pages of the Bible, searching in vain for some hope to cling to, or shut himself in the company room where they heard his heavy tread back and forth, the length of the room. Toward noontime, he took down his coat from the peg. "I'm going out for a time," he said hoarsely. He had one sleeve in the coat when a knock sounded at the door, and as he drew back the bolt, a man's voice grated harshly through the silent room. "Let me in, man. I've something to say." Matthew Wood stepped back from the door, and the Reverend Bulkley loomed on the kitchen threshold. "I thought you wanted to get down." There you go. "Matthew," he said, "you're a stubborn mule and a rebel, but this is no time for politics. Time was your Mercy was like my own daughter. Let me see her, Matthew. Let me do what I can, with God's help, to save her." Dang, this is going to make me cry. "Don't judge me." Matthew's voice was almost a sob. "Come in, Gershon," he choked. "God bless you. I was coming to fetch you." Dr. Bulkley's solid presence brought to them all new hope. "I have a theory," he told them. "I've read something like it, and 'twill do no harm to try. Cook me some onions in a kettle." For 4 long hours, Kit labored in Dr. Bulkley's bidding. She sliced onions, blinking her eyes against the stinging tears. She kept the fire blazing under the iron kettle. "Oh, should we take you to Dada?" "Huh? Do you want Dada?" "Yeah, he wants Dada." "Okay, I'll be right back. Sorry." "Say bye. I'm gonna go find Dada." "Say bye." "Yeah, okay, come on. I'll be right back." Bye. Bye. Okay, sorry. I'm back. Sorry about that. But I did grab something to show off since I was right out there. I made a couple of cutting boards for special order. Somebody who just wanted rainbow. It's kind of cute. It's very sparkly. And then this one is for someone whose kitchen is red and sunflowers. So I did red and sunflowers. Anyway, they both turned out really cute. Cutting boards are popular. Okay, back to the reading. Okay, she sliced onions, blinking her eyes against the stinging tears. She kept the fire blazing under the iron kettle. When the onions were cooked to just the right softness, Dr. Bulkley piled them in a mass on a linen napkin and applied the blistering poultice to Mercy's chest. As soon as the poultice cooled, a new one must be ready. Late in the afternoon, the doctor rose to his feet. There are others I must tend to, he muttered. Keep her warm. I'll be back before midnight. Kit busied herself to prepare a meal with which none of them could eat. With fingers so heavy from fatigue and fear that she could scarcely force them to move, she cleared the table and put away the untouched food. She wondered if ever again she would escape from the sound of that dreadful breathing. Her own lungs ached with every sighing breath that Mercy drew. Then, without warning, a new fear came rushing in upon her. From without the house, there was an approaching sound of stamping feet and murmuring voices, gathering volume in the roadway outside. There was a crashing knock on the outer door. The three women's eyes met in consternation. Matthew Wood reached the door in one stride and flung it open. "How dare you?" he demanded in his low-voiced anger. "Know you not there is illness here?" "Aye, we know right enough," a voice replied. "There's illness everywhere. We need your help to put a stop to it. What do you want?" "We want you to come along with us. We're going for the witch." "Get away from my house at once," ordered Matthew. "You'll listen to us first," shouted another voice, "if you know what's good for your daughter." "Keep your voices down then, and be quick," warned Matthew. "I've no time to listen to foolishness." "Is it foolishness that there's scarce a house in this town but has a sick child in it? You'll do well to heed what we say, Matthew Wood. John Wetherall's boy died today. That makes 3 dead, and it's the witch's doing." "Excuse me. Who's doing? What are you driving at, man?" "The Quaker woman's, down by Blackbird Pond. She's been a curse on this town for years with her witchcraft." The voices sounded hysterical. "We should have run her out long ago. Time and again she's been consorting with the devil down in that meadow. Now she's put a curse on our children. God knows how many more will be dead before morning." "This is nonsense," scoffed Matthew Wood impatiently. "There's no old woman and no witchcraft either could bring on a plague like this." "What is it then?" shrilled a woman's voice. Matthew passed a hand over his forehead. "The will of God," he began helplessly. "The curse of God, you mean?" another voice screamed. "His judgment on us for harboring an infidel and a Quaker." "You'd better come with us, Matthew. Your own daughter is like to die. You cannot deny it." "I have naught to do with it," said Matthew firmly. "I will hold with no witch hunt." "You'd better hold with it," the woman's voice shrilled suddenly. "You had better look to the witch in your own household." "Ask that high and mighty niece of yours where she spends her time," another woman shouted from the darkness. "Ask her what she knows about your Mercy's sickness." The weariness dropped suddenly from Matthew Wood. With his shoulders thrown back, he seemed to tower in the doorway. "Begone from my house," he roared, his caution drowned in anger. "How dare you speak the name of a good, God-fearing girl? Any man who slanders one of my family has me to reckon with." There was a silence. "No harm meant," a man's voice said uneasily. "'Tis only women's talk." "If you will not come, there's plenty more in this town who will," said another. "What are we wasting our time for?" The voices receded down the pathway, rising again in the darkness beyond. Matthew bolted the door and turned back to the dumbfounded women. "Did they wake her?" he asked dully. "No," sighed Rachel. "Even that could not disturb her, poor child." For a moment there was no sound but that tortured breathing. Kit had risen to her feet and stood clinging to the table's edge. Now the new fear that was stifling her broke from her lips in an anguished whisper. "What will they do to her?" Her aunt looked up in alarm. Matthew's black brows drew together darkly. "What concern is that of yours?" "I know her," she cried. "She's just a poor, helpless old woman. Oh, please tell me, will they harm her?" "This is Connecticut," answered Matthew sternly. "They will abide by the law. They will bring her to trial, I suppose. If she can prove herself innocent, she is safe enough." "But what will they do with her now, tonight, before the trial?" "How do I know? Leave off your questions, girl. Is there not enough trouble in our own house tonight?" He lowered himself into a chair and sunk his head in his hands. "Go and get some sleep, Kit," urged Rachel, dreading any more disturbance. "We may need you later on." Kit stared from one to the other, half frantic with helplessness. They were not going to do anything. Unable to stop herself, she burst into tears and ran from the room. Upstairs in her own room, she stood leaning against the door, trying to collect her wits. She would have to go get Hannah. No matter what happened, she could not stay here and leave Hannah to face that mob alone. If she could get there in time to warn her, that was as far as she could see just now. She snatched her cloak from the peg and, carrying her leather boots in her hand, crept down the stairs. She dared not try to unbolt the great front door, but instead tiptoed cautiously through the cold company room into the back chamber and let herself out the shed door into the garden. She could hear shouts in the distance, and slipping hurriedly into her boots, she fled along the roadway. In Meeting House Square, she leaned against a tree for an instant to get her bearing. The crowd was gathering, a good 20 men and boys and a few women carrying flaring pine torches. In the hoarse shouting and the heedless screaming of the women, there was mounting violence, and a terror she had never known before closed over Kit's mind like a fog. For a moment her knees sagged, and she caught at the tree for support. Then her mind cleared again, and skirting the square, darting from tree to tree like a savage, she made her way down Broad Street and out onto South Road. She had never before seen the meadows by moonlight. They lay serene and still, wrapped in thin veils of drifting mist. She found the path easily, past the dark clump of willows, and saw ahead the deep shining pool that was Blackbird Pond and a faint reddish glow that must be Hannah's window. Hannah's door was not even bolted. Inside, by the still flickering embers of the hearth, Hannah sat nodding in her chair, fast asleep. Kit touched the woman's shoulder gently. "Hannah, dear," she said, struggling to control her panting breath. "Wake up. 'Tis Kit. You've got to come with me, quickly." "What is it?" Hannah jerked, instantly awake. "Is it a flood?" "Don't talk, Hannah. Just get into this cloak. Where are your shoes? Here, hold out your foot, quick. Now." There was not a moment to spare. As they stepped into the darkness, the clamor of voices struck against them. The torches looked very near. "Not that way, down the path to the river." In the shelter of the dark bushes, Hannah faltered, clutching at Kit's arm. She could not be budged. "Kit, why are these people coming?" "Hush, Hannah, dear, please." "I know that sound. I've heard it before. They're coming for the Quakers." "No, Hannah, come. Shame on thee, Kit. Thee knows a Quaker does not run away. Thomas will take care of us." Desperately, Kit shook the old woman's shoulders. "Oh, Hannah, what shall I do without you?" Of all times for Hannah to turn vague. But Hannah's brief resolution suddenly gave way, and all at once she clung to Kit, sobbing like a child. "Don't let them take me again," she pleaded. "Where is Thomas? I can't face it again without Thomas." This time, Kit succeeded in half dragging the sobbing woman through the underbrush. They made a terrible rustling and snapping of twigs as they went, but the noise behind them was still louder. The crowd had reached the cottage now. There was a crashing as though the furniture were being hurled to splinters against the walls. "She was here. The fire is still burning. Look behind the woodpile. She can't have got far." "There's the cat!" screeched a woman in terror. "Look out!" There was a shot, then two more. "It got away, disappeared into thin air." There's no bullet could kill that cat." "Here's the goats. Get rid of them too." "Hold on there. I'll take the goats." "Witched or no, goats is worth 20 shillings apiece." "Scotch the witch out." "Fire the house. Give us a light to search by." Desperately, the two women pushed on over a marshy bog that dragged at their feet, through a cornfield where the neglected shocks hid their scurrying figures, past a brambly tangle to the shelter of the poplar trees and the broad moonlit stretch of the river. There they had to halt, crouching against a fallen log. Behind them a flare of light, redder than the moonlight, lit up the meadows. There was a hissing and crackling. "My house!" cried Hannah, so heedlessly that Kit clapped a hand over her mouth. "Our own house that Thomas built." With the tears running down her own cheeks, Kit flung both her arms around the trembling woman, and together they huddled against the log and watched till the red glow lessened and died away. For a long time the thrashing in the woods continued. Once voices came very close, and the search party went thracking through the cornfield. Two men came out on the beach not 20 feet from where they hid. "Could she swim the river, think you?" "Not likely. No use going on like this all night, Jem. I've had enough. There is another day coming." The men climbed back up the riverbank. When the voices died away, it was very still. Serenity flowed back over the meadows. The veil of mist was again unbroken. After a long time, Kit dared to stretch her aching muscles. It was bitterly cold and damp here by the river's edge. She drew Hannah's slight figure closer against her, like a child's, and presently the woman's shuddering ceased, and Hannah drifted into the shallow napping of the very old. There was no such escape for Kit. Her first surge of relief soon died away, and her thoughts, numbed by the sheer terror of pursuit, began to stir again in hopeless circles. What chance did they have when morning came? Should she rouse Hannah now and push on down the river? But where could they go? Hannah was exhausted. All her strength seemed to have died with the dying flames of her house. She could take Hannah home with her, where at least there would be warm clothes and hot food, but her uncle was a selectman. It would be his bounden duty to turn Hannah over to the law. And once they had her locked up in jail, what then? What use would a trial be with no one to speak in her defense but a foolish girl who was suspected of being a witch herself? Hannah could not even be trusted to answer the questioning straight. Like as not, her mind would wander, and she would talk about her Thomas. Yet as the long hours wore away, Kit could find no better solution. Whatever might happen, Hannah needed immediate care. Even the jail would be better than this unprotected place. As the first gray light slanted along the river, Kit made up her mind. They would not risk the main roads. They would pick their way along the shore of the river and cut through the meadows back to her uncle's house. Then, unbelievably, out of the mist, came the miracle. First, 2 points of mast, then sails, transparent and wraith-like in the fog. Then, as Kit strained her eyes, the looming hull, the prow, and the curved tail of a fish. The dolphin! Glory be to heaven, the most beautiful sight in the world. The dolphin moving down toward Wright's Island on a steady breeze. Kit leaped to her feet. Hannah, wake up! Look, look there! Her stiff lips could scarcely babble. She flung her arms into the air, waving wildly. She could hear a man's voice across the water, but the fog rolled tantalizingly between her and the ship. She tore off her petticoat and waved it hysterically, but she dared not shout. And if she could not attract their notice, the dolphin would sail past down the river and their chance would be gone. Kicking off her shoes, Kit waded into the water, plunged in, and struck out toward the ship. It was a very short swim, but she had overdrawn her strength for days past. She was panting when the black hull loomed over her head, and at first she could barely raise her voice above the wash of the ship. She drew a careful breath and tried again. There was a cry above her and a sound of running feet. Ahoy, all hands! Man overboard! 'Tis a woman. Hold on there, ma'am, we're coming. She heard shouted orders, a thumping and creaking of ropes. Then the lifeboat swung out over her head and lowered with a smack into the water. Nat and the red-headed sailor were inside, and she had never before been so happy to see anyone. I knew it, groaned the red-headed one as she clung gasping to the side of the boat. Kit, what kind of game is this? Hannah, she's in terrible trouble, Nat. They burned her house. Please, can you take her on the Dolphin? They dragged her over the side of the boat. Where is she? Nat demanded. Tell the captain to heave to, he yelled up toward the deck. We're going ashore. There, pointed Kit, by that pile of logs. We've been there all night. I didn't know what to do, and when I saw the ship. All at once she was sobbing and babbling like a 3-year-old about the witch hunt and the chase through the cornfield and the men who had come so close. Nat's hands closed over hers hard and steady. "'Tis all right, Kit," he said over and over. "We will take you both on and get you some dry clothes. Just hold on a few minutes more till we get Hannah." The boat scraped the shore. Still dazed, Hannah accepted the miracle and the prospect of a journey like a docile child. Then, after 2 shaky steps, she turned obstinate. She would not set foot in the boat without her cat. "I can't go off without her," she insisted. "I just cannot, and thee ought to know that, Nat." She would just grieve her heart out with no home to go to, and me gone off on a ship. "Then I will get her," said Nat. "You wait here, and keep quiet, both of you." Kit was outraged. If she had been Nat, she would have picked Hannah up and carried her off in the boat with no more nonsense. As he strode up the bank, she scrambled after him through the wet underbrush. "You are crazy, Nat," she protested, her teeth chattering with cold. "No cat is worth it. You've got to get her out of here. If you could have heard those people. If she's set on that cat, she is going to have it. They've taken everything else." Nat stood in the midst of the charred cinders that had been the little house. "Damn them," he choked. Curse all of them! He kicked a smoldering log viciously. They searched the trampled garden, and presently they heard a cautious meow. The yellow cat inched warily from beneath a pumpkin vine. She did not take to the idea of capture. They had to stalk her, one on each side of the garden, and Nat finally dived full length under a bush, dragged the cat out, and wrapped it tightly in his own shirt. Back at the shore, Hannah received the writhing bundle with joy and climbed obediently into the rowboat. "Where are we going, Nat?" she asked trustfully. "I'm taking you to Saybrook for a visit with my grandmother. You'll be good company for her, Hannah. Come on, Kit. Father will go on without us." "I'm not going, Nat. All I wanted was to see Hannah safe." Nat straightened up. "I think you had better, Kit," he said quietly. "Till this thing blows over, at least. This is our last trip before winter. We will find a place for you in Saybrook and bring you back first trip next spring." Kit shook her head. "Or you can go on to the West Indies with us." "Barbados." The tears sprang to her eyes. "I cannot, Nat. I have to stay here." The concern in his eyes hardened to awareness. "Of course," he said courteously. "I forgot. You are going to be married." "'Tis mercy," she stammered. She's terribly ill. I could not go. I just could not knowing." Nat looked intently at her and took one step nearer. The blue eyes were very close. "Kit." "Ahoy there!" There was a bellow from the Dolphin. "What is keeping you?" "Nat, quick, they'll hear the shouting." Nat jumped into the boat. "You will be all right? You need to get warm. I will go home now. Only hurry." She stood watching as the boat pulled away from the sand. Halfway to the ship, Nat turned to stare back at her. Then he raised an arm silently. Kit raised her own arm to wave back, and then she turned and stared back along the shore. She dared not wait to see them reach the Dolphin. In another moment, she would lose every shred of common sense and pride and fling herself into the water after the rowboat and plead with them not to leave her behind. Though it was long past daybreak now, her luck still held. She met no one in the north field. Once she dodged behind a brush pile as the town herder came by with some cows to pasture. She reached the house without further danger. The shed door was still unbolted, and she let herself in and crept noiselessly through the house. She heard a murmur of voices, and as she reached the hallway, the door to the kitchen opened. "Is that you, Kit?" Aunt Rachel peered at her. "We decided to let you sleep, poor child. Dr. Bulkley has been here all night. Praise God, he says the fever is broken." In her joy and weariness, Aunt Rachel did not even notice the sodden dress and hair under Kit's woolen cloak. Okay, well, that is the end of chapter 17. That was an emotional one. I did good, though. I got a little emotional, but I didn't weep. I almost did. I should do fair, warnings. I get emotional when I read books, okay? I get invested. I remember one time I was reading, I wish I could remember the name of the book because it was so cute, but there's a lady, the story was from her point of view, but she was a teacher in this little country school, and there was a little boy that was handicapped. But all the children loved him. They adored him. He was so sweet. And he died. All the children saved up all this money so he could get a surgery, but he I can't remember if he died during the surgery or before he got to the doctor or something that was supposed to save his life. And I was sitting at the kitchen table, just weeping my eyes out, reading my book, just crying. And Elmer Randy came in, and he's like, "Why are you crying?" I was like, "It's a story. It's so sad. And the little boy died." And he's like, "It's a book." It's just a story. I was like, are you really not ever affected by these stories? He's like, "No, it's not real." I was like, "Oh, well, okay. You're different than me. I get emotional. I can't take it." Anyway, yeah, I do. I get emotional. So I did good this time, but I don't promise that in the future I won't weep tears as I'm reading. So thanks for coming. And I know this one was extra long. It was an extra long chapter, but we will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for stopping. Don't forget to leave likes on the videos because that does help. And I'll see you later for chapter 18. Thanks.